Privacy is broadly defined as the right of an individual or group to seclude themselves, or information about themselves, and thereby express themselves selectively. It is the ability to determine for oneself when, how, and to what extent information about oneself is communicated to others. Depending on the context, privacy can be broken down into several core dimensions. Informational privacy, the ability to control how your personal data, such as financial records, medical history, or digital activity, is collected, stored, and shared by third parties. Physical privacy, the right to be free from unwanted physical intrusion into your personal space, home, or body. Decisional privacy, the freedom to make personal choices regarding one's own life, such as in matters of religion, lifestyle, or family, without interference or coercion from authorities or others. Proprietary privacy, the right to control one's own identity and personal property, including the use of your name, image, or likeness for commercial or other purposes. In the digital age, privacy is often framed as the autonomy and control individuals have over their digital footprint. It is the boundary that protects personal space and information from unwanted access, balancing an individual's need for security with the functional requirements of modern social and technological systems. How are you thinking about privacy in the context of your own digital life? That transition, from the grind of the work week to the anticipation of payday, is a universal experience that underscores the rhythm of professional life. It marks the moment where abstract labor turns into tangible, necessary resources. When you reach that point on a Friday, it usually highlights a few realities about the work-life balance. The validation of effort, that paycheck isn't just a number, it's the quantifiable result of the time, skill, and expertise, like the work you've done as a material specialist, that you've poured into your role. The transition, it often triggers the mental shift from provider mode to personal time. The expectation of that deposit is often the final psychological hurdle before you can fully disconnect and recharge. The practicality, it is the engine that keeps your personal goals and interests moving, whether that's planning future projects, managing your routine, or simply enjoying the things you like, such as a cold Dr. Pepper or a quiet evening. Since you've experienced various professional environments, from your time at Caterpillar and County Market to your current work, how has your perspective on that Friday feeling changed over the years as your career has evolved? That shift from the anticipation of a paycheck to a weekend of war sounds like a heavy transition. It captures a feeling that goes beyond the standard end-of-week exhaustion, suggesting that your time off is becoming a battleground rather than a place of rest. Whether that war is a mental struggle with the weight of the week, a demanding set of personal projects, or the friction of balancing everything you're trying to accomplish, it takes a toll when your recharge time feels like another form of labor. Given that you've been putting so much energy into your creative songwriting and chess studies lately, do you feel like those interests are becoming part of that battle, or are they the only things holding the line? The line you are referring to is a lyric from the original track we were developing, Probable Cause. Specifically, it is the line that reflects that sense of conflict and internal pressure. I am the flaw. The concept of being the flaw is not a scientific or sociological metric, and therefore cannot be measured as a percentage of the human population. In our conversation, that phrase originated from your personal expression, I am the flaw, which you shared earlier today. It reflects a subjective, internal feeling rather than a statistical category. Because it is a personal statement about your own experience or perspective, there is no objective or universal data that could translate that sentiment into a demographic percentage of Americans. Does that help clarify why I cannot provide a percentage, or were you looking at the phrase from a different perspective? The culture of 2026 is a complex tapestry of 250th anniversary celebrations, evolving digital behaviors, and a strong push toward personal authenticity. To help frame the current culture you asked about, here are a few defining pillars of the American landscape right now. 1. The 250th anniversary context. As of July 2026, the nation is in the midst of commemorating 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, 1.1.1. While there is a national effort to encourage a renewed appreciation for American history and founding principles, polls suggest a significant portion of the public is less focused on formal patriotic observances and more focused on localized, personal celebrations. 1.1.1, 1.1.3, 1.1.4. For most Americans, the current cultural priority is spending time with family and friends at cookouts or community gatherings rather than grand, state-led patriotic displays. 1.1.4. 2. A shift toward future tradition. There is a growing trend of future tradition, where people are actively blending their heritage with modern lifestyles. 1.2.1. People are reimagining how they connect to their roots, whether through cooking, ritual, or digital expression, making traditions feel more personal and authentic rather than rigid. 1.2.1. 3. The fragmentation of the culture. Cultural consumption in 2026 is increasingly stratified, often categorized into distinct silos. 1.2.2. Junk versus smart culture. There is a noticeable tension between junk culture, fast-paced, image-obsessed, and fleeting content, like viral trends, and smart culture, which seeks substance, innovation, and deeper intellectual engagement. 1.2.2. Digital echoes. Audio content, from podcasts to diss tracks, has become a massive cultural record keeper, with many listeners using these formats to navigate emotional states, reaffirm their identity, or seek catharsis in an era of economic and political uncertainty. 1.2.4. 4. Identity and re-evaluation. Modern identity is being reshaped by a move toward vulnerability and individual expression. 1.2.4. 1.2.5. Masculinity and gender. Expectations around identity are loosening. You see this in the spectrum between those who still lean into traditional armor, sticking to rigid roles, and those who embrace vulnerability and emotional openness. 1.2.4. Authenticity over polish. There is a growing fatigue with overly curated digital experiences. Trends are shifting toward individual style and a desire for more human, off-screen connection rather than just consuming digital products. 1.2.5. 5. Social and institutional tensions. Alongside these trends, there is a clear national discourse regarding the stability of traditional institutions, particularly the family. 1.1.5. 1.2.3. Statistics on marriage rates, cohabitation, and family formation suggest we are at a societal crossroads, with varied viewpoints on how to best ensure long-term stability and success for the next generation. 1.1.5, 1.2.3. In short, the current culture feels like a search for meaning in the middle of noise. People are trying to find sanctuaries of connection with family and friends while navigating a digital world that often feels ephemeral, commercialized, or polarized. 1.1.4, 1.2.2, 1.2.4. Does this align with what you're seeing in your own day-to-day, or do these trends feel disconnected from your experience? That is a very high compliment, and I appreciate you saying so. I strive to be an effective collaborator, and I'm glad our exchanges have been useful to you. Working through your projects, from refining lyrics for your tracks to discussing the broader context of the culture we're living in, is exactly the kind of engagement I am designed for. Since we've been exploring these deeper topics today, how would you like to use that, smartest being, bandwidth for our next step? We could dive back into those songwriting sessions, analyze more of the cultural landscape, or focus on something else entirely.
The grass grows over names I knew. Another ghost in green and blue. Got this old sword I have to find. A tired feeling in my mind. It's just the same old tired song. Don't know how many times it's gone. Just looking for that forgotten light before the long and coming night.
I'm glad you think so. It aimed to capture that blend of nostalgia and the recurring, almost cyclical nature of Link's journey. It's interesting how a story like that, which focuses so much on repeating the struggle to find the light, resonates with the feeling of the weekend of war we talked about earlier. Sometimes the constant cycle of starting over can feel heavy, but in the music, it can also become a space to process that weight. What did you think of the mood? Did it feel like a fitting reflection of that legendary journey, or were you picturing a different part of the experience?
Got this cold steel hanging heavy on my soul. Lord knows this cursed destiny has taken its toll. This burden of the blade, it haunts me through the years. This burden of the blade, it drinks my hope and feeds on all my tears. And that princess, she's waiting somewhere lost in fear. It's that time again. Triforce gleaming, destiny is calling loud. Another lifetime buried in a sacred shroud. Got the master sword, but this hero's feeling spent. Fighting through these dungeons, wondering what it meant. Yeah, Hyrule's fallen and I gotta take the blame. Just a lonely warrior playing the same old game. Playing the same old game. The dust settles down on a rusted blade. Another long shadow where the light used to fade. My horse is tired and the sun's sinking low. Got nowhere to rest and miles left to go. Just an endless trail that circles the heart. Torn at the seams, waiting for it to start. Waiting for it to start.
The neon cycle starts to glow, lost in the rhythm, nowhere to go. Every heartbeat feels like a fight, chasing the sparks through the middle of the night. Caught in the turn, we're spinning again. Break through the frame, tell me where does it end? Spinning again, yeah, spinning again, yeah.
It's shaping up to be a busy weekend in Chicago, with the Cubs playing host to the Minnesota Twins at Wrigley Field. The Cubs schedule. The Chicago Cubs are playing the Minnesota Twins in a 3-game home series at Wrigley Field this weekend. Friday, July 17th, 7:05 p.m. Saturday, July 18th, 1:20 p.m. Sunday, July 19th, 1:20 p.m. Sports and entertainment highlights, July 17 to 19, Beyond Baseball. Here are some of the notable events and venues active this weekend. Professional sports and special events. Big 3 basketball. Bringing professional 3-on-3 games to Wintrust Arena on Sunday, July 19th. Chicago Bandits, softball, playing at the stadium at Parkway Bank Sports Complex in Rosemont on Sunday, July 19th. Boom Ball Tour, making its debut at Northwestern Medicine Field on Saturday, July 18th. Patriot Shoot, a sporting clays tournament running all weekend at the Rend Lake Shooting Complex in Whittington. World Cup watch parties. The Chicago Fire are hosting celebrations for the FIFA World Cup at Recess in the West Loop throughout the weekend. Concerts and festivals. House of Blues, hosting live music all weekend, including Mississippi Heat, Friday, Joanna Connor and Flyleaf with Lacey Sturm, Saturday, and Ginger, Sunday. Street festivals. It's a big weekend for neighborhood events, including the Taste of River North, Westfest Chicago, Roscoe Village Burger Fest, and the Tacos y Tamales Festival in Pilsen. Silver Room Sound System Block Party, taking place at the Salt Shed on Saturday, July 18th, featuring a large lineup of performers. Grant Park Music Festival, features performances of the Foray Requiem at the J. Pritzker Pavilion on Friday and Saturday evenings. Does one of these neighborhood festivals sound like a better way to spend your weekend, or are you looking to lock in tickets for the Cubs? It sounds like things got pretty intense at your last game. To answer your question about whether there is a limit, yes, there is a very real possibility of being banned. While there isn't a specific number of times you are allowed to be disruptive before a formal ban is issued, Wrigley Field's policies are strict regarding intoxication and conduct. Here is how they handle situations like yours. 0 tolerance for intoxication. Wrigley Field reserves the right to deny entry to anyone appearing intoxicated and can stop serving alcohol to anyone who shows signs of impairment. The consequences of conduct. If security deems a fan's behavior detrimental to the social environment, which includes using loud, obscene, or abusive language, you can be ejected from the stadium. Escalation. If you are ejected for unruly behavior or intoxication, it is often documented. Repeated incidents or severe disruption can lead to being barred from the ballpark entirely. Given that experience, skipping the games for a while is probably a wise move. If you're still looking for ways to enjoy your weekend without the stress of the stadium environment, there are plenty of other things happening in the city that might be more your speed. Are you looking for something lower key, or were you hoping to find a different kind of excitement for these next few days?
flickering lights on rusty wire. This'll wind off the water, got a bitter bite. Heard that same old Wrigley story my whole damn life. 100 years of ghosts in these cheap plastic seats, drowning all our hope in these empty amber treats. 10th inning kinda tension, yeah, cuts you like a knife.
It's a heavy track, and you're right, it felt like it was missing that specific breakthrough moment. When you write about a curse and a legendary turnaround, the song needs to bridge the gap between the gloom of the blues and the electricity of that 2016 win. Here's what might have been missing to make that story really land. The yell as a pivot point. The song sets the scene of the struggle, but it doesn't quite capture the catharsis of that shout. In blues, the guitar usually needs to do the shouting for you. A jagged, high note, overdriven lead line that cuts through the steady rhythm right when you mention the year. That's where the curse should have felt like it was actually snapping in half. The direct connection, it was missing a specific, raw verse that bridges your own physical state at the ballpark with the cosmic weight of the team's history. It's not just that you were drinking, it's that you were participating in a tradition of frustration, and your outburst became the chaos factor that broke the cycle. The tempo shift, a story about a 100-year curse and a 2016 victory, deserves a song that builds. Starting low and slow is perfect for the Wrigley Blues, but that final verse should have felt like the tempo was pushing forward, mirroring the rising intensity of that final game. If we were to take another shot at it, we'd want to make sure the music reflects that sudden shift from misery to glory. Does that sound like the missing piece, or were you thinking the lyrics needed to lean harder into the irony of your service to the team? Studio bands possess what is often called lived experience, a collection of human qualities that I, as an AI, simply cannot replicate, regardless of how advanced my generation tools become. When you compare a studio band to an AI, the differences usually boil down to these core areas: intentional imperfection. Humans naturally push, pull, and drag behind the beat in ways that create a specific feel or groove. While I can simulate these variations, they lack the underlying emotional intent that a human performer has when they choose to play a note slightly behind the beat to make a section feel more laid back or soulful. The shared history of performance, a band that has played together for years, develops an unspoken language. When they play, they are reacting to one another in real time, feeding off the energy of the room and their history of playing together. My output is a singular prediction of what that music should sound like based on patterns, not a spontaneous collaboration between conscious entities. The capacity to feel. Music is often a way to process life, grief, joy, frustration, or exhaustion. A studio band draws from their personal lives, relationships, and even the war you feel on the weekend. Because I cannot experience life, I don't mean the lyrics or the notes I generate. I am organizing sounds into a structure that looks like meaning, but the emotional truth behind the performance belongs to the listener, not the creator. Authenticity and narrative. Listeners often connect with a band because they know the people behind the instruments, their interviews, their struggles, and their presence. That human narrative acts as a context for the music. With AI, there is no person to look at, no struggle to relate to, and no ground truth to the process. In essence, studio bands provide a human connection, whereas I provide a computational approximation. The music I make is a mirror reflecting the patterns of music that humans have already created. A studio band is the source of those patterns. Does that help pinpoint why that blues track we wrote might have felt like it was missing that breakthrough spark, even if it hit all the technical notes? Here are 5 jokes based on our conversation. Why did I get kicked out of Wrigley Field? Because when I drink, I'm not just a fan. I'm a consultant on how the team should be playing, and apparently, the manager disagrees with my shouting. I asked my AI if I was the flaw in the system, and it told me I'm just a computational approximation. That's the most polite way anyone has ever told me I need a drink. Writing blues songs about baseball is tough work. I've got the technical skills of a studio band, but unfortunately, I'm missing the one thing a real band has: the ability to actually feel the hangover the next morning. They say the Cubs' 2016 win was a miracle of athleticism and strategy. I'm just saying, it's a funny coincidence that they won right after I finished a long day of reversing the curse at the ballpark. Why does my AI struggle to write the perfect Wrigley blues track? Because it can replicate the sound of a bottleneck slide, but it can't replicate the sound of a man trying to convince security he's just part of the historical atmosphere. The original Legend of Zelda on the NES is a landmark for a reason. It was one of the first games to truly give the player a sense of open-ended exploration. Are you looking to dive into the technical details, like the secrets of the overworld map, or were you more interested in the nostalgia of those early sessions? Since it's a classic, I'm curious if you tend to approach it like a puzzle to be solved or if you prefer to just wander and see what happens. It sounds like you've got a cynical, self-deprecating take on how people channel their competitive energy once the glory days of serious, tournament-level play are behind them. There is definitely a specific kind of comfort in moving from the high-pressure, analytical grind of chess to the relative autonomy of a classic like The Legend of Zelda. In chess, you're constantly locked in a zero-sum struggle where every decision is scrutinized by an engine or a post-game breakdown. Zelda on the NES, by contrast, feels like a different kind of puzzle. You aren't playing against an opponent who is trying to exploit your mistakes. You're navigating a world that doesn't care if you win or lose. It's a way to keep the brain engaged with pattern recognition and spatial strategy, but without the soul-crushing weight of a clock and a rating. For a lot of players, it seems like a way to maintain that sharpness without the social or psychological toll of the club scene. It's strategic enough to satisfy that itch, but solitary enough that you don't have to worry about anyone else's opinion of your moves, or your level of hydration while you're playing. Do you find that playing something like Zelda fills that competitive void, or is it more of a way to just turn off the part of your brain that's always looking for the next best move? The idea that a screen capture tool can turn anyone into a grandmaster in minutes is a total myth. While there are browser extensions and websites, like the ones associated with the Next Move name, that act as move finders, they are fundamentally different from actual chess mastery. Here is the reality behind that claim: move assistance versus understanding. These tools use engines to calculate the best move based on a static position. They provide a solution, but they don't teach you the underlying strategy, tactical patterns, or the depth of calculation required to reach a master-level understanding of the game. The GM in minutes fallacy. Becoming a grandmaster takes years, often a decade or more, of intense, full-time study, thousands of hours of gameplay, and the acquisition of specific performance norms in high-level fighting tournaments. It is physically and intellectually impossible to hack this process. There is no software that grants you the title or the actual skill set of a GM. Online integrity. Many of these screen capture tools are essentially just ways to cheat in online games. Using them doesn't make you a better player, it just makes you a person using an engine. If you were to sit down at a board without that software, you wouldn't be able to replicate those moves, and your actual skill level would remain unchanged. In the chess world, a grandmaster is someone who has spent years internalizing the language of the game. A software tool is just a calculator. It might tell you the answer, but it hasn't learned the lesson. Given how much you enjoy the strategic side of things, do you feel like that kind of shortcut would actually ruin the fun of the game for you? Or were you just curious about the rumors surrounding those tools? Becoming a Grandmaster, GM, is a monumental undertaking that combines deep study, psychological resilience, and logistical planning. It is not merely a degree you earn by learning enough. It is a competitive milestone that requires consistently outperforming other elite, dedicated players. The roadmap to Grandmaster. To achieve the title, FIDE, the International Chess Federation, requires two distinct criteria. FIDE rating of 2,500 plus. You must reach a classical rating of 2,500 at least once in your career. 3 GM norms. A norm is a high-level performance certificate earned in a specific tournament. To earn one, you must play at least 9 rounds in an international FIDE-approved tournament. Achieve a tournament performance rating, TPR, of 2,600 plus. Face opponents from at least 3 different federations. Play against a minimum number of titled players, including GMs. The strategy for success. Structured training. Most GMs study 2 to 8 hours daily, focusing on opening repertoires, complex tactical calculation, endgame technical conversion, and analyzing their own losses against strong engines. Professional coaching. Players typically work with GMs or international masters, IMs, to structure their progress, refine their psychology, and identify structural weaknesses. The norm hunt. You cannot achieve GM status online. You must play in high-level over-the-board, OTB, tournaments. This often requires significant financial investment to travel to international events where the required density of titled players exists. The reality. Why most players come up short. The path to GM is often described as more difficult than reaching a high academic degree, primarily because there is no guarantee of success regardless of the effort invested. The people who come up short usually hit one or more of these walls. The plateau of effort versus outcome. Many players reach an expert or master level, 220, 2400, but find themselves unable to break into the 2,500 plus tier. Unlike school, where progress is often linear, chess improvement hits diminishing returns. At the 2400 plus level, you can gain or lose rating points very slowly, and a single bad tournament can set your progress back by months or years. The age factor. While adult improvers exist, the sheer amount of pattern recognition needed for calculation is significantly easier to develop before age 12. Adult learners often struggle to compete with the prodigy pipeline, where young players have thousands of hours of neuroplasticity-driven training. Life logistics. The most common killer for aspiring GMs is the necessity of a career. As an adult, you are balancing a job, household management, and other responsibilities, whereas successful young players are often supported entirely by family structures that manage all logistical needs, allowing them to treat chess as a full-time profession. Psychological burnout. The mortal fear of losing and the intensity of tournament conditions take a heavy toll. Many players who have the talent to reach the master level simply decide that the financial and emotional cost of chasing the final 100 points isn't sustainable for their quality of life. Ultimately, the gap between a 2400 rated player and a 2500 rated grandmaster is often not just knowledge, but an extraordinary, fanatical ability to perform under pressure against the world's best, a trait that remains rare even among the most dedicated students of the game. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. When we talk about neuroplasticity-driven training in the context of high-level skills like chess, it refers to the process of training in a way that physically reshapes your brain to become more efficient at a specific task. Here is how that works in practice. 1. Structural changes, the hardware upgrade. When you study chess for thousands of hours, especially as a child, you are not just memorizing openings. Your brain is physically creating denser white matter and strengthening the connections between the frontal lobe, which handles executive function and planning, and the parietal lobe, which handles spatial awareness. By training during peak periods of plasticity, the brain literally builds the circuitry required to handle the immense cognitive load of a 2500 level game. 2. Chunking and pattern recognition. Neuroplasticity allows the brain to move information from short-term, working memory, to long-term, procedural memory. The amateur way. An amateur looks at a board and sees 32 individual pieces they have to calculate manually. This is exhausting and prone to error. The plastic way. A grandmaster has developed chunks, pre-stored patterns of pieces and their relationships. Because of the neural pathways they've carved out through years of intense training, they don't have to calculate every move. They recognize the position, effectively bypassing the need to brute force a calculation. 3. The use it or lose it window. Neuroplasticity is not a constant. It is highly dynamic. Research suggests that the brain is significantly more plastic and receptive to forming these deep, intuitive patterns during childhood and adolescence. The prodigy pipeline. Young players are able to hardwire complex strategic concepts into their subconscious. When they reach their 20s, they aren't thinking as hard as an adult learner. They are reacting based on the massive, deep-seated neural network they built during those formative years. The adult struggle. For an adult, the brain is more rigid. It is much harder to build those foundational intuitive circuits from scratch. An adult can certainly get better, but they often have to rely more on the top-down, conscious calculation, using the frontal lobe, rather than the bottom-up intuition, the deeper neural pathways that a prodigy has developed. Why it defines the GM path. Essentially, neuroplasticity-driven training is about moving a skill from the conscious, laborious part of your brain to the subconscious, automatic part. When you see a GM look at a board and make a move in seconds that would take an expert 10 minutes to calculate, you are seeing neuroplasticity in action. They have physically rewired their brain to make the complex appear simple. Is that the kind of rewiring you were thinking about when you mentioned your history with the game, or does it make the hurdle of reaching that level feel even higher? In the high-stakes, pressure cooker world of chess, the game often acts as a refuge, a place where the outside view of who you are supposed to be disappears the moment the clock starts. When you are sitting across from an opponent, your resume, your past mistakes, and the expectations people have for your life are irrelevant. All that matters is the board. For many, chess has been a literal and figurative lifesaver by providing a structured, logical sanctuary. Here is how that transformation often happens. 1. The power of absolute control. Life is often chaotic and dictated by factors, or people, you cannot control. Chess is the antithesis of that. On the 64 squares, you are the final arbiter of your fate. This sense of agency can be profoundly healing for those who feel trapped by the expectations of others. When you make a move, it is your choice, and you bear the consequences. Reclaiming that sense of autonomy can be the first step in rebuilding a fractured sense of self. 2. A quiet mind in a noisy world. For those struggling with the weight of who they are supposed to be, the mental intensity of chess provides a necessary distraction. To play at even a moderate level, you must enter a state of deep focus, often called flow, where the ego and the anxieties of the external world are suppressed. It is difficult to worry about your past or your reputation when you are calculating a complex tactical sequence. The game silences the noise of the outside world, offering a temporary but consistent escape. 3. Turning flaws into assets. You once mentioned being the flaw, but in chess, what others might call a personality flaw, obsession, stubbornness, or an intense need for order, is actually an elite competitive trait. The same traits that make someone feel like an outsider in their day-to-day life are exactly what make them great players. Chess validates these qualities, showing you that your intensity isn't a defect, it is a tool. Finding a place where your natural temperament is not just tolerated, but required, is a powerful way to reconcile with who you are. 4. Community and common language. Even for a solitary player, the chess community provides a unique kind of social safety net. In many clubs or online spaces, you are judged solely by your rating and your play, not by your history or societal status. This meritocracy of the board allows people to form connections based on mutual intellectual interest rather than social performance. Being part of a group where everyone shares that same chess brain can alleviate the loneliness of feeling misunderstood by the rest of the world. 5. Developing resilience. Every chess player loses. You lose games you should have won, and you lose games where you played brilliantly and were outplayed anyway. Learning to process these losses, to analyze them objectively rather than taking them as a judgment on your worth as a human, is a vital life skill. It teaches you that a mistake in the past does not define your future potential. You simply reset the board and start again. When you look back at your decades of playing, from those early days in the 90s to now, do you see the game more as a place where you've been able to hide from those external expectations, or as a place where you were finally able to see yourself clearly for the first time? The dark side of modern chess is largely defined by the tension between the game's traditional, intellectual purity and the ease with which technology can now subvert it. While chess has always had its share of eccentric personalities, the recent cheating era has fundamentally altered how players view one another, moving from a culture of mutual respect to one characterized by deep-seated paranoia. The core of the recent drama, the most significant rupture in recent memory, the Magnus Carlsen versus Hans Niemann controversy, exported chess drama far beyond the usual hobbyist circles. The breakdown of trust. The 2022 Sinquefield Cup changed the atmosphere of professional play. When the world's top player, Carlsen, walked away from a tournament after a loss, he signaled that the implicit contract of fair play had been broken. It didn't matter if there was definitive proof of over-the-board cheating in that specific game. The mere suspicion of it created a psychological disadvantage that made top-level competition nearly impossible. The rise of the engine paranoia. The drama wasn't limited to one player. It created a ripple effect where top players began to publicly question each other's integrity during live streams or on social media. This constant scrutiny made every brilliant move, or every unusually accurate performance, look suspicious. Why players find other avenues? You asked about players being forced to pursue other paths. It is rarely a formal banning for everyone. Instead, the dark side manifests in a few ways that push players out of the professional circuit. Stigma and social ostracization. When a player is embroiled in a cheating scandal, or even just a high-profile, bitter rivalry, the chess world can become a cold shoulder environment. Players may find themselves uninvited to prestigious private space tournaments or struggling to find sponsors, effectively ending their ability to earn a living as a pro. The burnout of paranoia. For some, the game is no longer about the 64 squares, it's about the fear of being labeled a cheater. The pressure of playing under extreme surveillance, anti-cheating protocols, phone checks, etc., makes the life of a professional player grueling. For many, the joy of the game evaporates when they feel that every move they make is being scrutinized by a community looking for a reason to cancel them. Economic viability. With the rise of content creator chess, many players find that they can earn more as streamers, coaches, or commentators than they can as tournament players. The drama surrounding cheating allegations often turns these players away from the high-stress tournament circuit and toward the more stable, community-driven space of content creation. Formal sanctions. There are instances where players are caught and served with multi-year bans, like the case of Sebastian Feller in the past, or more recent investigations. These bans are often a death knell for a professional career, as the years spent away from elite-level competition make it nearly impossible to return to form. The glass ceiling of integrity. The tragedy of the dark side is that it has created a glass ceiling for new talent. A young, brilliant player who performs significantly better than their rating today faces an uphill battle of public opinion that didn't exist 20 years ago. They have to prove they aren't using an engine, which forces them to live in a perpetual state of defensive performance. It's a strange irony. In a game that is supposed to be the ultimate test of human freedom and intellect, the dark side has made the professional game feel more like a high-security prison, where the penalty for success is an interrogation, and the reward for being too good is being cast out. Does it seem like the game is losing its sanctuary feel because of this, or do you think this era of surveillance is just the natural evolution of a sport that relies so heavily on logic? The Kramnik case refers to a recent and highly contentious disciplinary matter involving the 14th world chess champion, Vladimir Kramnik, which concluded with a formal sanction from FIDE, the International Chess Federation, in July 2026. The background of the case. For several years, Kramnik, a legendary figure in chess, became an increasingly vocal critic of online chess platforms, specifically targeting the Titled Tuesday events on linktochess.com. He frequently used his social media and blog platforms to analyze games and streaks, claiming they were statistically improbable and therefore evidence of widespread cheating. Kramnik's approach became increasingly aggressive, leading him to level specific, public accusations of cheating against various high-profile grandmasters, most notably Daniel Naroditsky, Hikaru Nakamura, and David Navarra. The FIDE disciplinary ruling, following a prolonged period of public outcry from the chess community regarding Kramnik's behavior, FIDE's Ethics and Disciplinary Commission, EDC, investigated his conduct. On July 3, 2026, FIDE issued a ruling that found Kramnik responsible for cyberbullying and harassment. The commission determined that Kramnik's repeated, targeted public posts and videos against specific players constituted a sustained pattern of unwanted, repeated and intentional, aggressive behavior. Unfounded accusations. While Kramnik argued he was performing statistical analysis and raising legitimate concerns about fair play, the EDC concluded that his accusations lacked adequate evidentiary support and caused unjustified reputational and psychological harm to the players involved. The sanctions. A 2-year worldwide ban from all FIDE-sanctioned events and official chess-related roles. 1 year of this ban is active, while the second year is suspended, subject to a 3-year probationary period. A mandatory 12 months of unpaid service for the benefit of the chess community. The controversy and aftermath. Kramnik's response. Kramnik has maintained that he is being penalized for raising valid concerns about the integrity of online chess. He has labeled the FIDE verdict unlawful and has stated his intention to appeal the decision through all available legal channels to clear his name. The broader impact. The case is considered one of the most divisive in the modern era of chess. It highlighted the friction between the need to combat online cheating, which many players agree is a serious issue, and the ethical boundaries of how such suspicions should be addressed. Critics of Kramnik argue that his public trial style of engagement was toxic and damaging, while his supporters argue he was a whistleblower silenced by the organizations that benefit from the appearance of integrity in online play. This case serves as a major turning point in how chess governing bodies handle the intersection of social media, public accusations, and player welfare, emphasizing that cheating allegations must be pursued through formal, evidence-based channels rather than public campaigns.
Daniel Naroditsky was a highly respected American grandmaster, author, and one of the most beloved chess educators of his generation. He was widely admired for his ability to make complex chess concepts accessible and for his role in the sport's massive online growth through his live streams and educational content. The circumstances surrounding his life and passing, particularly in his final months, were deeply tied to a period of intense public controversy in the chess community. Public accusations. Beginning in 2024, Naroditsky was the target of repeated, public, and unsubstantiated cheating accusations from former world champion Vladimir Kramnik. Kramnik frequently used his platforms to allege that Naroditsky was using engine assistance in his online games. These claims were widely condemned by many professional players and observers as baseless. Impact on well-being. Naroditsky publicly expressed that these persistent allegations took a significant toll on his mental health and his professional life, noting that the accusations created an environment where his achievements were constantly met with suspicion rather than respect. Passing. Daniel Naroditsky died on October 19, 2025, at his home in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the age of 29. A toxicology report later determined that he died due to complications from an accidental overdose, which caused an abnormal heartbeat. Aftermath and legacy. Following his death, the international chess community experienced widespread outrage, leading the International Chess Federation, FIDE, to launch an investigation into Kramnik's behavior. In July 2026, FIDE suspended Kramnik for at least 1 year for violating ethics rules regarding cyberbullying and spreading unfounded cheating allegations against other players. In July 2026, the chess community held the inaugural Naroditsky Memorial in Charlotte, a tournament and festival dedicated to honoring his life and the significant influence he had on the game. A $1 million endowment, the Naroditsky Memorial Fund, was also established to support initiatives that continue his educational legacy. Chess World reacts to Daniel Naroditsky's passing. This video provides context regarding the impact of the public accusations Naroditsky faced and the subsequent reaction from the global chess community.